Did you know the internet we love today was born from a nerdy dream to share science papers? But when big money and power got involved, it sparked a brutal war that changed how we surf the web forever. From Netscape's rise to Microsoft's dirty tricks and the rebellion that gave us Firefox and Chrome, here's the wild, untold story of how browsers fought to control the internet, and why the real winner wasn't what the participants had hoped. In the beginning, the web wasn't about pet videos, online shopping, or checking your ex's Facebook. It had a much simpler mission: sharing knowledge. At the European Nuclear Research Center in the early 1990s, Professor Tim Berners-Lee had a problem. Scientists all over the world had piles of research data, but no easy way to share it. So he invented HTML, basically a way to format information so computers could display it. Think of it like digital paper. Anyone could publish something, and anyone else could read it. At this stage, it wasn't a business. It wasn't even the internet as we think of it today. It was an academic tool. But here's the thing. About useful tools, sooner or later, the market comes sniffing around. In 1993, a group at the University of Illinois released Mosaic, the first browser that could show text and images on the same page. Suddenly, the web wasn't just a nerdy filing cabinet of documents. It was visual. Regular people could explore it, and the internet started feeling like a place worth visiting. Mosaic made such a splash that one of its creators, Mark Andreessen, went on to start Netscape Navigator in 1994. That's when the web took its big leap from research project to commercial product. Netscape gave everyday users a doorway to the internet, and for a while, it looked like they were holding the keys to the future. But here's the twist. Netscape wasn't satisfied with just being the browser. They imagined that HTML could be the building block for future apps, and browsers as the hosting environment. That way, the browser could replace the operating system itself, basically making Windows irrelevant. That kind of ambition was guaranteed to wake a sleeping giant in Redmond, Washington, a giant named Microsoft. By the mid-1990s, Netscape Navigator wasn't just popular, it was everywhere. At its peak, it owned more than 80% of the browser market. For Microsoft, this was pure nightmare fuel. If the browser really did become the new operating system, then Windows, their money-printing machine, could be in trouble. So Microsoft went into full not-on-my-watch mode. They built Internet Explorer, and here's the killer move. They bundled it with every copy of Windows. If you bought a PC, you got IE by default. Netscape had to convince people to go out of their way to download and install it. Microsoft just slipped theirs in like hotel soap, free and unavoidable. But the battle wasn't just about who could get on your hard drive. It turned into a dirty coding war. HTML was supposed to be an open standard, but both Netscape and Microsoft started sneaking in their own proprietary tags, little browser-specific tricks. Netscape would add one, Microsoft would counter with another. The result was a total headache for web designers. A site that worked in Netscape often broke in IE. A site built for IE looked busted in Netscape. The web, which was supposed to be universal, became a mess of best viewed in Internet Explorer or best viewed in Netscape disclaimers. To users, it seemed like progress. Suddenly, websites had graphics, animations, and even blinking text, because nothing screams 1990s internet than blinking text. But underneath, it was a tug-of-war to lock developers into one camp or the other. Whoever controlled the standard would control the web. In the end, Microsoft's bundling strategy steamrolled the competition. By the early 2000s, Internet Explorer had swallowed more than 90% of the market. Netscape faded into history, and Microsoft stood victorious. But here's the kicker. The very threat Microsoft feared, the browser replacing Windows, was gone. And once they'd won, they basically stopped innovating. After all, why bother? Windows will save again. That complacency, of course, would come to haunt them. By the early 2000s, Microsoft had done it. Internet Explorer was on more than 90% of computers worldwide. Netscape was toast, the first browser war was over, and Microsoft was popping champagne. But here's the twist. Microsoft never actually liked browsers. To them, the browser was a threat. If everything ran inside it, who needed Windows? So once IE crushed Netscape, Microsoft basically crossed browser off their to-do list and walked away. That left users stuck with a clunky, vulnerable browser. Internet Explorer was welded into Windows, so a single browser exploit could bring down your whole system. It's designed to let unsigned code run inside IE, basically an open invitation for spyware and malware. Annoying pop-ups were everywhere, and forget about tabs. If you wanted multiple pages open, you had to juggle a dozen IE windows like a circus act. People begged Microsoft to fix it. And what did Microsoft do? In 2003, they disbanded the IE development team. Seriously. While users suffered and developers cursed IE's quirks, Microsoft focused on defending its real moneymakers, Windows and Office. For years, IE just sat there. No major updates, no innovation, just a growing pile of security holes, and a reputation as the browser everyone loved to hate. But here's the thing about markets. When you ignore demand, someone else steps in. Users wanted speed and safety. Developers wanted consistency. Microsoft wasn't listening. So the door was wide open. And that's when the rebellion began. First with Firefox, then with Google Chrome. Together, they lit the spark for a second great browser revolution. By the mid-2000s, Internet Explorer had the numbers, but not the love. Users hated the crashes, the pop-ups, and the constant malware headaches. Developers dreaded its quirks. Microsoft had won the war, but their victory smelled like stale bread. The first spark of rebellion came in 2004 with Firefox. Rising from Netscape's ashes, Firefox finally gave people what they'd been begging for. Tabs. No more juggling 15 windows like a digital plate spinner. A built-in pop-up blocker sparing everyone from the ad hell that IE happily allowed. Extensions and themes that let you trick out your browser however you want it. And, imagine this, regular updates that actually made it faster and more secure. Developers adored it because Firefox played nice with web standards, meaning their sites worked instead of breaking. Firefox proved one thing loud and clear. People were hungry for progress. Then, in 2008, came the real earthquake, Google Chrome. Chrome's pitch was simple: speed. Its new V8 JavaScript engine made websites run like sports cars compared to IE's old minivan. The interface was stripped down and minimalistic, just tabs and a single omnibox for search and web addresses. Compared to IE's cluttered toolbars, Chrome felt sleek, modern, even cool. But Chrome's real magic was under the hood. Each tab ran in its own sandbox, so if one crashed, it didn't take down the whole browser. Automatic updates kept users safe without nagging, and developers got Chrome Dev Tools, a game changer for debugging. Plus, with Gmail, YouTube, and Google Docs all running smoother on Chrome, adoption took off like a rocket. For users, this was liberation. Finally, a browser that kept up with the modern web. For developers, it was relief. No more coding gymnastics to dodge IE's bugs. And for Microsoft, it's pure humiliation. Internet Explorer became the punchline. The browser you only opened once to download Firefox or Chrome. The rebellion worked. The market had spoken, and the once untouchable Internet Explorer monopoly began to crumble. After Firefox and Chrome reignited the browser wars, the energy shifted to a new dream, HTML5. It's not just another update, it's the next big step for the web. HTML5 was built to modernize the internet, making it possible to run rich, interactive apps without clunky plugins like Flash. Suddenly, browsers could handle video, graphics, offline storage, even games right out of the box. The web would become more powerful, open, and accessible across different devices. Supporters had a bold vision that apps built with HTML5 could run on any browser, on any device. No more platform-specific native apps. The browser itself could finally act as a universal operating system. The vision was summarized as write once, run everywhere. It sounds familiar, as Netscape had once imagined Navigator doing the same thing. Now, open web advocates were singing the same song, just with shinier instruments. But once people tried it, cracks started showing. Problem number 1, performance. Unlike native apps that talk directly to the hardware, HTML5 apps had to go through the browser middleman. On desktop, it's bearable, but on mobile, where resources are tighter and battery life matters, it was painful. Apps felt sluggish when having to go through a middle tier, and sluggishness on a phone strikes out fast. Users don't care if your app works on every platform. If it lags or drains their battery, they delete it. Problem number 2. Input mismatch. On desktops, we relied on good old keyboards and mice. Then mobile devices showed up with a whole new playbook: swipes, pinches, taps, and long presses. These input styles couldn't be more different, and developers quickly learned that simply recycling desktop code wouldn't cut it. Think of HTML5 apps built for mouse clicks were suddenly on phones with no mice. Imagine trying to right-click on your iPhone. It'd be awkward. To fit in the mobile world, apps had to be designed with touch in mind. But if you have to build separate apps for different devices, that lofty write once, run everywhere promise goes right out the window. Problem number 3, the App Store reality. By 2008, Apple and Google had rolled out app stores, and users loved them. Apps were easy to find, easy to install, and felt tailor-made for mobile. That shoved browser apps into the background. Apple went further with banning Flash on iOS, locking Safari down as the only allowed browser engine, and tight restrictions on web APIs. Translation: the open web wasn't going to eat Apple's lunch. In theory, HTML5 was the great equalizer. In practice, it couldn't live up to the hype. Just like Netscape dreamed of eliminating Windows, HTML5 dreamed of eliminating native apps. And just like before, the market looked away. The history of browsers is more than a tech saga. It's a lesson in market dynamics. Grand ambitions repeatedly collided with what users truly wanted. HTML and browsers nailed their original goal of sharing knowledge and delivering content. From reading news to browsing Wikipedia or watching videos, HTML's simplicity remains its strength. But HTML5's write once, run everywhere promise was developers' dream, not users, especially on mobile devices. Users didn't care about universality. They only wanted apps to be responsive, fancy, and easy to find on their current device. The browser wars of the 1990s saw Netscape and Microsoft locked in a fierce battle, betting the browser could knock out the operating system or vice versa. Reality proved more nuanced. Browsers and native apps didn't obliterate each other. They found their niches. Browsers became the go-to for information and content, while native apps excelled in performance-driven, mobile-first experiences. The web thrived in the old fights. Proprietary tags, lawsuits, and corporate bravado now seem like overblown drama. Tech giants pour fortunes into shaping markets, but users ultimately decide the winners. Ambitions rise, monopolies crumble, and progress belongs to those who deliver what people need.